right, folks. Welcome to a showcase interview with the 3P process, and it's about people, processes, and profits. That's the 3Ps. So I have a special guest today. I've known Andy Arndt for quite a few years, and he's got a lot of humorous stories. His stories have a lot of, I guess, guts and glory going into it because he has a huge background and it's built into the automotive industry. So, Andy, I'm not going to introduce you and explain to people who you are. I'm going to let you do that for maybe 2 minutes and so to get a feel for Andy Arndt and where you were and where you are today. So, Andy, you're on the video.
All right, Gary. My name's Andy Arndt. My shop is Arndt Automotive, Malta, Illinois. Been in business for 34 years. Started out as a one-man band. Now we've got, I believe I've got 13 people working here, including myself. My son is 32 years old. He's my general manager. He's been running the show for a few years now. He's been with me since he was about 10 years old. So we do just about everything you could think of. We've got one guy that does body and fender work. We do everything automotive. We do medium and heavy duty trucks, tires, just about everything you can think of. So I guess my motto has always been, if your money's green, we're going to work for you. So
I like that motto. Yeah. Show me the green, show me the money.
So the town we were at here, it only got 1,200 people. I was born and raised here on a farm just north of town. Always loved the mechanical business. Got into it pretty much because I liked it. Liked it better than working with animals and with crops. Just always liked the machinery. So that's why I got into it. Never really thought about whether or not I could make any money or not. It's just a matter of I did it because I liked it, you know. I like tell people I probably had more guts than brains. So here I am, you know. So we kind of figured we couldn't specialize too much here in a little town of 1,200 people if we were going to get people to come from all around. But after 34 years, we're on track to do probably $2.2 million in sales this year. So wow. We've been successful. But it's been a tough road, man. That's for sure. So
yeah. Well, we talked about the people side, and Andy, if you would share, 2 or 3 key points that you think that someone listening to this video or wanting to know more about the people side, as is you're talking to another shop owner, and say, hey, this is what I've learned, and maybe this will help you. So 2 or 3 things about people that you would like to share.
So I guess, I grew up on the farm, and my dad was a tough old German guy. He just worked all the time. And he was always, he always taught us to do the best we could. He used to tell me, he says, I don't care what you do. He says, if you're a janitor, you better be the best janitor around. So that was kind of the work ethic that I grew up with. And I guess once upon a time, I thought that everybody thought like me.
Okay.
Because I did pretty much whatever it took to get the job done. I mean, if I had to stay and work late, work 7 days a week, I come in early, stay late, whatever it took, I did it. And first thing I learned about people when we started hiring people is most people don't think like me. And so I had a hard time with that at first. That not everybody was like me. And then Gary, I think you were the one that told me. You said, "Well, Andy, if everybody was like you, they'd be working for themselves. They wouldn't be working for you." So that kind of made me realize what we were dealing with. But I've always thought, when you hire somebody, you're not going to find somebody that's going to do 100% of what you're looking for. If you can find somebody that can do 80% of what you're looking for, that's probably about as good as you're going to do. And I found that, there's nobody that's perfect, but, if you find someone that's, I guess you find someone that's lazy, they can work for you as long as they're not stupid. Or you can find somebody that maybe he's real smart, but he's lazy, but he could probably make it work too. But if you find someone that is stupid and lazy both, that ain't going to work out. We just
have you hired a few of those, Andy? Have you hired a few of those?
Let one go here a few weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah, he couldn't get her done. You could spell it out and he still couldn't get her done. So he was stupid and lazy. But most people are either one or the other. You don't find too many that are both, but anyhow, so that's I guess that was one of my biggest things about people is that if they thought like I did, they probably wouldn't be working for me. They'd be working for themselves. So
yeah.
That's one of the biggest things for me.
All right. Well, that kind of puts a feel on the people side, and I'm sure there's a million stories you could share about people,
Right.
especially not your customer people, but the people you have working on your staff over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So the next thing up would be the second P, which is process. So Andy, in your mind's eye, what would you like to share with the people about processes or process?
So when you work, so there's a difference between being self-employed and being a business owner. A self-employed person that is hardworking and smart will get by without processes. Well, or they may have processes, but they're not written down. They have routines,
Okay.
And so when I started out just working by myself, I figured out the ways to get things done. I guess I call them routines, but I didn't, it was all in my head,
Sure.
It's like, think about when you get up in the morning, like when I'm getting up to go to work, it's really easy. I don't even have to think about what I'm doing because I do the same thing every morning, take a shower and brush my teeth and get dressed and go to work. But if I'm going out somewhere and I got to wear something other than my work clothes, I don't know what to do because now I got to think about it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So if I had to get dressed up every day, I probably wouldn't have to think about that. But when I have to get dressed up, I have to ask my wife for help because I don't know what to wear, But once you start hiring people, you start out with, you got to tell them every move. And when you're in that kind of mode, you can't get anything done for yourself because all you're doing is directing people. And the more people you get, it takes up all your time managing them. So if you take some of those processes and routines that might be swimming around in your head, put them down on paper or in a computer, and then you prioritize how you want things done, then you can start having routines and processes for your workers so that they don't need constant supervision. Because that's when I get my work done, I got to get everybody else around me working first. And then I have time to do what I got to do. And so the more processes and routines that you can develop for people, the better off, the more efficient and organized you're going to be.
So it's interesting that they shouldn't be SOPs, they should be SORs.
Standard operating routines. Could be.
It might not get people puckered up if you call it a routine instead of a process, right?
It could be, yeah. Right.
No, I think you hit on something there. That's gold, man. So we got standard operating routines.
Could be. Yeah.
Might be an easier sell.
Might be. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else on the processes you found over the years?
I found that really good technicians a lot of times make their own processes that work. So
Okay.
It doesn't always have to be me that makes the process. Sometimes I might have someone in my organization that knows how to do it better than I do. So I might be able to get them to either make the process and make the SOP or the SOR.
I like the SOR.
Or I can enlist their help to do it because I'm not always the most qualified guy to do it. In fact, I've got equipment in my shop I don't even know how to run. Smart people sometimes can make the SOP or SOR for you, or at least assist in it. And I guess that's the real art of transitioning from a technician to a business owner, is getting other people to do the things that need to be done so that I don't have to do it all myself. If you can't get that part of it down, you're never going to be a success in business. You got to learn how to delegate to other people, and the processes make things a lot more efficient and organized than just running off the shooting from the hip all the time,
Yeah. We've all done that.
Oh yeah.
We've all done that, and we suffered for it.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay. Thanks for sharing about the people, processes, and the third P is profits. Share your wisdom on the profits over a 34-year span here of one or two or three items that really jump out and say, this is what happened to me, and this is how I learned it. Right.
So when I was getting into this trade, I started doing this. Well, I was doing this in high school, and then I worked at a couple of shops, and then I was going on my own part-time by the time I was 21, 22 years old. And I didn't care about money as long as I could put food on the table. That's a survive.
Yeah.
That's all I cared about. And I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids. I just had a old truck and a whole bunch of tools. And I just, as long as I could keep on working on cars, I was happy, and as long as I could survive, that's all I really cared about. But as time went on, I got married and had kids, and you're got to pay rent or buy a house. You got all these expenses. Now all of a sudden you gotta make money because you got to pay the bills, and so profit then becomes important. And then you start realizing that you've got to have return on investment. I remember my dad used to say, if you're just going to make a wage and nothing more, you might as well just go work for somebody else, because all you got to own is a lunch pail, and just go in, do what you're told, and get paid,
You sound like a wise man.
Oh yeah. But so if you're gonna have all that risk, being in business, and all that investment on all the equipment and the training and everything that you've got to have, you got to make more than a wage. You got to have a return on investment. And I think as you get older, and because you look at it this way, half the people that start down this route, or probably more than half, don't make it, right? They fail for whatever reason. If you survive and you make it, you start realizing, hey man, I gotta have a profit. And you get to be where, when you're starting out, you're always worried that somebody's going to say that you're too expensive. And after a point, it's like, there's always going to be somebody that says that. It doesn't matter what you charge, somebody's always going to think you're too expensive. So that just goes out of, you just forget about that. Just do what you got to do. And then the thing is too, what you got to understand about your suppliers is they got to make a profit as well. If you beat your suppliers up so much that they can't make a profit, then they're not going to be able to stay in business. And then guess what? You're not going to have any suppliers. So,
Oh, yeah.
Business cannot go on without a profit. I mean, that's that's the way it is here. Without a profit, nothing survives. So you got to have a profit, or nothing works. So
Yeah. And Andy, you and I met some 10 or 12 years ago, and you started down this path of understanding your numbers better.
yeah.
Was there something that kind of opened your eyes to everything? Was there a tool that you used that you just locked into and stayed with it?
Yeah, so that was a big thing about, getting coaching, getting help. When I was a technician. I was not a businessman. I knew how to fix cars, but and if you're just fixing cars as a hobby, that's fine. You don't have to worry about making a profit. But when it's your livelihood, you gotta make money, and it's like you don't really know how much is too much or not enough. I mean, you kind of say, well, the guy down the street's charging X amount of dollars per hour,
Yeah.
so I'm going to charge less.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that we don't want any people to think we're too expensive. That's kind of
Yep.
the mindset you have going forward. And then it's like, geez, I guess I got to mark these parts up something, because I had to go get in my truck and drive over to the parts store and buy them. So you got to get paid for your gas, and that's kind of how it starts out. And then if you make it, you start realizing, well, I got to charge more. And so it really helps to get coaching, I think, because if you have someone out there that can kind of tell you what the standards are. I mean, you got to get a certain gross profit margin on labor and a certain gross profit margin on parts. Because if you can't get that, you're just not going to make it. You have to learn these things. So I think that was really instrumental in us going from just barely surviving to actually making a decent amount of money. I think that understanding that the budgeting tool that we used with you, Gary, budgeting for profit, that was probably, I mean, there's so many things that I've gotten out of coaching, but that probably was the very first thing that it really helped me out, because once I had a target and had an idea where I needed to be and a method to get there on paper, I mean, just organizing the numbers so that you knew where you were at. You might not be where you want to be, but at least you knew where you're at, and then where you needed to go. And I guess one of the biggest things that you taught us was in order to improve something, you got to be able to measure it, and so that was a measuring stick to figure out where we were at. And then once we knew where we were at, then we figured out where we needed to go. And then it was a matter of, okay, how can I make this happen? So that was a big deal. Sure.
Yeah. Man, I love what you shared about your people. Andy, I love what you shared about the processes. And I like that SOR. I think that we just may go away from SOPs to SORs. And so your profitability, it's without profit, this is no fun.
Right.
It's not. Right. It's hard enough with making a profit and seeing the end result, and if you think about it, if the people are set right in your business and the processes are being properly done, your profits should be there, shouldn't they?
Right.
Yeah. And so which P do you leave out? None of them. You can't. So the whole idea behind this interview today, Andy, is about just letting people know there are 3 P's in business. It's people, process, and profits. You can't do without either one.
Right.
Can't grow without it. You can't grow without processes. You can't grow without profits.
Right.
So really, there are 3 ingredients to success. And I just want to ask you one thing, Andy. if there's one thing you want to share as a parting shot across the bow to whoever's listening to this, what would you tell them? I probably caught you off guard on that one, but
Yeah, you
what
did.
would you
Yeah.
tell them? What would you tell them?
Wow. I always told my son, my son, Corey, has been with me since he's about 10 years old. And we always enjoyed working on stuff together. He'd be down here all weekend with me, working on stuff. And I always told him that, if you can make a living doing something that you really enjoy, that's about the greatest thing in the world, than to go to a job that you hate every day. And that's something that, we always had is not to say every day is wonderful and great. I mean, you're going to have bad days like everybody else, but if you can do something that really you enjoy doing, it gives you, makes you feel good, I guess, gives you a sense of value, your life, you're a valuable person, I guess. That's like the greatest thing there is, I think. So
your contribution to society, right?
Yeah.
Is keeping the people's cars running safely and helping someone out, getting their vehicle back on the road. You imagine how your life would be if your customers didn't have their cars.
Right.
Man, their life is upside down, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Right.
How you going to get your kids to school? How you going to get them picked up? How you going to get to work? That car and that vehicle is a instrument of lifestyle, isn't it?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Andy, thank you. I know that we've talked many times about these different things, and we could tell stories and probably do this 8 hours and not cover everything. But I do want to thank you for your time and sharing your wisdom about the 3 Ps, the people, the process, and the profits.
You bet.
Thanks again, Andy.